Ethan Caldwell was not your average CEO. At 34, he had built Caldwell Tech from the ground up, transforming it into one of the most innovative tech companies in the world. His name was synonymous with success, discipline, and an almost robotic focus on work. But beneath his polished exterior lay a man who rarely smiled, avoided personal connections like the plague, and viewed emotions as nothing more than distractions. To Ethan, life was about results, cold, hard numbers, and anything else was irrelevant. One crisp Monday morning, Ethan sat in his corner office overlooking the bustling city skyline. The room was sleek and minimalist, much like its occupant. He scrolled through emails on his tablet when one particular message caught his attention. It was from his top negotiator, detailing progress on a potential partnership with Nakamura Industries, a prestigious Japanese conglomerate known for its cutting-edge technology and traditional values. This deal could catapult Caldwell Tech to unprecedented heights, solidifying its position as a global leader. However, there was a catch, a big one. The email explained that the chairman of Nakamura Industries, Hiroshi Nakamura, placed immense importance on family values and tradition. In fact, according to insider reports, the elderly chairman often judged potential partners based not just on their business acumen, but also on their ability to maintain balance in their personal lives. Unfortunately for Ethan, his reputation as a perpetually single, emotionally detached workaholic might raise red flags during negotiations. If Nakamura believed Ethan lacked stability or commitment, the entire deal could fall apart. Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. This wasn't something he'd anticipated. All his life he had prided himself on being self-reliant, needing no one but himself to achieve greatness. Yet here he was, faced with a dilemma that couldn't be solved by sheer determination or strategic planning. For once, logic alone wouldn't cut it. He needed a solution, and fast. After hours of brainstorming, Ethan came up with what he thought was a brilliant idea: hire someone to pose as his fiancée for the duration of the summit. In Tokyo, it would be purely professional, of course, a temporary arrangement designed to appease Nakamura's outdated sensibilities while ensuring the deal went through. Satisfied with his plan, Ethan summoned his PR team and instructed them to find suitable candidates immediately. Over the next few days, Ethan interviewed several women recommended by his team. Some were models with dazzling smiles but little substance. Others were actresses accustomed to playing roles but lacking authenticity. None of them felt right. Just as Ethan began to doubt the feasibility of his plan, his assistant introduced him to Harper Bennett. Harper was unlike anyone Ethan had ever met. She wasn't polished or glamorous in the conventional sense, but there was something undeniably magnetic about her. Her curly brown hair framed a face lit up by expressive hazel eyes, and her laugh seemed to fill the room with warmth. A freelance event planner by trade, Harper had agreed to meet Ethan out of curiosity, and perhaps desperation. Her small business was struggling, and the hefty paycheck offered for this gig could make all the difference. During their initial meeting, Ethan laid out the terms of the agreement in his usual direct manner. "This is strictly business," he said, his tone leaving no room for ambiguity. "You'll attend events, engage in conversations, and act as my fiancé for the week. Nothing more." Harper listened intently, her head tilted slightly as if trying to decipher whether Ethan was serious. When he finished speaking, she grinned mischievously. "Well, Mr. Caldwell," she replied, "you're lucky I'm great at pretending to care." Her playful jab caught Ethan off guard, and for the first time in years he found himself smiling. Not because he wanted to, but because he couldn't help it. There was something refreshingly honest about Harper, a quality that intrigued him despite his best efforts to remain indifferent. As they discussed logistics, Ethan learned more about Harper's background. She was fiercely independent, running her own company after leaving a corporate job that stifled her creativity. She spoke passionately about her work, describing how she loved bringing people together and creating memorable experiences. Ethan admired her tenacity, though he didn't admit it aloud. Instead, he focused on hammering out details, making sure Harper understood the gravity of the situation. By the end of their conversation, Harper agreed to take the job. As she left his office, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that hiring her might have been the smartest decision he'd made in a long time. Little did he know, Harper's presence would soon challenge everything he thought he knew about relationships, trust, and even himself. For now, however, Ethan pushed those thoughts aside. He had a business deal to secure and a fake fiancée to prepare for the performance of a lifetime. The flight to Tokyo was long, but Harper made the most of it. She spent hours poring over notes about Caldwell Tech, Nakamura Industries, and the chairman's family. Ethan had provided her with a detailed dossier, complete with photos, biographies, and key talking points for each member of the Nakamura delegation. Harper took it all in stride, her natural curiosity driving her to absorb every detail. But what truly fascinated her was learning about Ethan himself, or at least the version of him that existed on paper. Ethan, meanwhile, sat across the aisle, buried in his laptop as usual. He glanced up occasionally to see Harper jotting down notes or practicing Japanese phrases from a language app. Each time he caught her smiling to herself or softly repeating words like arigato and sumimasen, something inside him softened. It wasn't just her dedication that impressed him, it was her enthusiasm. Harper seemed genuinely excited about the trip, even though she knew it was all pretend. For someone who lived by logic and strategy, Ethan found her optimism oddly disarming. When they arrived in Tokyo, the city greeted them with its signature blend of modernity and tradition. Skyscrapers towered above ancient temples. Neon lights flickered against serene gardens, and the air buzzed with energy. Harper couldn't help but marvel at the contrast, snapping photos out of sheer wonder. Ethan watched her from the corner of his eye, amused by how easily she embraced the unfamiliar. Unlike him, who preferred structure and control, Harper thrived in spontaneity. Their first official event was a welcome dinner hosted by Chairman Nakamura. The venue was an elegant restaurant nestled in a traditional ryokan, complete with tatami, mats, sliding shoji doors, and delicate flower arrangements. As they stepped inside, Harper instinctively slipped into character, looping her arm through Ethan's as if they'd been doing it for years. Her touch was light yet confident, and Ethan felt a strange warmth spread through him, a sensation he quickly dismissed as irrelevant. Harper greeted everyone with genuine warmth, bowing slightly and offering polite smiles. She introduced herself as Ethan's fiancée, her voice steady and sincere. To anyone watching, there was no doubt she meant every word. When Chairman Nakamura approached them, Harper leaned forward slightly, expressing admiration for his leadership and legacy. The elderly man's eyes twinkled as he complimented her grace and poise, clearly charmed by her presence. Throughout the evening, Harper navigated conversations with ease, effortlessly switching between discussing business trends and sharing anecdotes about her relationship with Ethan. She recounted stories she'd invented during their preparation sessions, how they met at a charity gala, how Ethan surprised her with tickets to Paris for their anniversary, how they dreamed of starting a foundation together someday. Each tale was crafted so convincingly that even Ethan found himself believing them, if only for a moment. What struck Ethan most was Harper's ability to connect with people. She didn't just recite lines, she listened actively, asked thoughtful questions, and laughed at jokes with genuine delight. By the end of the night, she had won over not only Chairman Nakamura but also his wife, daughter, and granddaughter. Even Ethan's usually stoic colleagues were impressed, whispering among themselves about how lucky he was to have found someone like Harper. For Ethan, however, the experience was more complex. Watching Harper shine in social settings made him realize how much he had missed by shutting people out. He admired her authenticity, her willingness to let others see her true self. And yet, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this entire arrangement was built on lies. Every smile Harper gave, every story she told, it was all part of a carefully constructed facade. Still, Ethan couldn't deny the effect she was having on him. For the first time in years, he felt alive. As the week progressed, Harper continued to dazzle everyone around her. During a formal tea ceremony, she demonstrated remarkable patience and respect, earning praise from the hostess for her impeccable manners. At a networking luncheon, she engaged in lively discussions about technology and innovation, showcasing her intelligence and wit. Even during late-night strategy sessions with Ethan and his team, she offered valuable insights, proving that her contributions extended beyond mere appearances. Despite her outward confidence, Harper wasn't immune to moments of doubt. There were times when she wondered if she was crossing a line, blurring the boundaries between reality and fiction. Was she becoming too invested in this role? Too attached to the idea of being Ethan's partner? These thoughts kept her awake some nights, staring at the ceiling of her hotel room and questioning her own motives. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of meetings, Ethan invited Harper to join him on the rooftop terrace of their hotel. The city lights stretched endlessly before them, casting a golden glow over the horizon. They stood side by side, neither speaking for several minutes. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "You're doing an incredible job," he said, his voice softer than usual. "I don't think I've ever seen anyone command a room the way you do." Harper turned to look at him, surprised by the sincerity in his tone. "Thanks," she replied with a small smile. "But it's not just me. You're part of this too, you know. People see us as a team." Ethan frowned, unsure how to respond. The word team felt foreign to him, almost uncomfortable. Yet deep down he knew she was right. Harper had brought out a side of him he hadn't realized existed, a side that valued connection, collaboration, and maybe even vulnerability. As they stood there under the stars, Ethan allowed himself to imagine what it might be like to have someone like Harper in his life, not as a fake fiancé but as a real partner. The thought lingered in his mind long after they returned to their respective rooms, leaving him restless and uncertain. For all his brilliance in business, Ethan was beginning to realize that matters of the heart were far more complicated and far more rewarding than he had ever anticipated. By the middle of the week, Harper and Ethan had settled into a rhythm that felt almost natural. To the outside world, they appeared to be the perfect couple, polished, affectionate, and deeply in sync. Harper's charm continued to win over everyone she met, while Ethan's usually reserved demeanor softened in her presence. Together they navigated the delicate balance of business and personal interactions with grace, earning praise from Chairman Nakamura and his family. But behind the scenes, cracks were beginning to form, not in their performance, but in the fragile foundation of trust between them. It started during a quiet moment after a formal dinner, when Harper accidentally overheard a conversation that would change everything. Ethan was speaking with one of his senior executives in a secluded corner of the venue. Unaware that Harper was nearby, he discussed contingency plans should their charade fail. "She's just another asset," he said, referring to Harper without using her name. "If this doesn't work, we'll find another way. No need to get emotionally involved." The words hit Harper like a punch to the chest. She froze, her breath catching as she processed what she'd heard. Just another asset? That's all she was to him, a tool to secure a deal? The realization stung more than she cared to admit. She had known from the start that their relationship was fake, but somewhere along the way she had allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was something real growing between them. Clearly, she had been wrong. Harper didn't confront Ethan immediately. Instead, she retreated into herself, focusing solely on fulfilling her contractual obligations. Her smiles became slightly less genuine, her laughter a little forced. She continued to play her role flawlessly, but the warmth that had once defined her interactions began to fade. Ethan noticed the shift almost instantly. Something about Harper seemed distant now, guarded in a way she hadn't been before. One evening, during a private tea ceremony hosted by the chairman's granddaughter Yumi, Harper found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. Yumi was young, vibrant, and full of dreams of starting her own fashion line. As they sipped matcha together, Harper shared stories about her struggles as a freelance event planner, the late nights, the financial uncertainty, and the joy of seeing her ideas come to life. Yumi listened intently, her eyes shining with admiration. "You're amazing," Yumi said at one point, shaking her head in disbelief. "I can't imagine how you managed to stay so positive. And yet—" She hesitated, glancing toward Ethan, who was deep in conversation with Chairman Nakamura across the room. "How do you put up with someone like him?" Harper blinked, caught off guard by the question. "What do you mean?" she asked carefully. Yumi shrugged. "He's successful, sure, but he seems cold, like he's always calculating or planning. Something. I don't understand how someone as warm and kind as you could ever fall for someone like that." The comment struck a nerve. Harper forced a laugh, brushing it off as best she could. "Oh, Ethan's not as bad as he seems," she said lightly. "He has his moments." But later, as she replayed the conversation in her mind, she couldn't ignore the truth behind Yumi's words. Was she really falling for Ethan? And if she was, did it even matter? He had made it clear that she was nothing more than a means to an end, a temporary solution to a business problem. The thought left her feeling hollow. For Ethan, the growing distance between them was equally unsettling. He tried to convince himself it didn't matter, that Harper's emotional state wasn't his concern, but the nagging feeling persisted. One night, after a particularly tense meeting, he approached her in the hotel lobby. She was sitting alone, scrolling through, her phone, her expression unreadable. "Is everything okay?" he asked cautiously, taking a seat beside her. Harper glanced up, startled. "Yeah, fine," she replied quickly, avoiding his gaze. "Just tired." Ethan frowned. "You've seemed different lately. Distant." She hesitated, debating whether to say anything. Finally, she sighed. "Look, Ethan, I know this is just a job for you. You don't owe me anything. But maybe it's time we both focused on getting through this week without complicating things further." Her words hung in the air, heavy, with unspoken meaning. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, unsure of what to say. The truth was, he had started to feel something for Harper, something deeper than gratitude or admiration. But admitting it felt dangerous, like stepping onto shaky ground he wasn't prepared to navigate. Things came to a head during a cultural excursion organized by the Nakamura family. The group visited a serene garden filled with cherry blossoms in full bloom. As petals drifted lazily to the ground, Harper wandered ahead, lost in thought. Ethan followed, his steps slow and deliberate. When they reached a secluded bench overlooking a koi pond, he finally spoke. "I heard what you said earlier," he admitted, his voice low. "About keeping things simple. I want you to know I appreciate everything you've done. For me, for the company. You've been incredible." Harper nodded, her eyes fixed on the water. "Thank you, I think it's better if we stick to the plan. No distractions." Ethan studied her profile, noting the tension in her jaw and the sadness lurking in her eyes. "Did something happen?" he pressed gently. "Something I should know about?" Harper hesitated, torn between honesty and self-preservation. In the end, she decided to tell him part of the truth. "I overheard you talking to your executive the other night," she confessed quietly. "About me being just another asset. It made me realize I need to remember why I'm here. To do a job, nothing more." Ethan's face paled. He hadn't realized Harper had overheard that conversation, and now he understood why she'd been pulling away. Guilt washed over him, sharp and unrelenting. "Harper, it's fine," she interrupted, forcing a smile. "Really, let's just focus on finishing strong, okay?" With that, she stood and walked back toward the group, leaving Ethan sitting alone on the bench. For the first time in years, he felt truly powerless. His words had hurt her, and no amount of logic or strategy could undo the damage. All he could do was hope that somehow, before the week ended, he might find a way to make things right. The final day of the summit arrived, and the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Everyone gathered in a grand conference room adorned with traditional Japanese decor. Sliding shoji screens, delicate flower arrangements, and soft lighting that bathed the space in warmth. The air buzzed with quiet conversations as attendees waited for Chairman Nakamura to make his much-anticipated announcement about the partnership. Ethan stood near the window, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared out at the city skyline. He looked calm on the surface, but inside his mind raced. Over the past few days, he had come to realize just how deeply Harper's presence had affected him. Her laughter, her kindness, her ability to see beyond his carefully constructed walls. It all meant something now. And yet, because of his own careless words, she had withdrawn from him emotionally. The distance between them felt unbearable, especially knowing that their time together was coming to an end. Harper sat across the room, scrolling absently through her phone. She appeared composed, but her thoughts were anything but peaceful. Despite her best efforts to stay detached, she couldn't ignore the ache in her chest whenever she thought about Ethan. His admission earlier in the garden had softened her anger, but it hadn't erased the hurt. She wanted to believe that what they shared could be real, but fear held her back. What if opening her heart only led to more pain? As the clock ticked closer to the chairman's arrival, Harper decided she couldn't leave things unresolved. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about honesty, for herself and for Ethan. Summoning her courage, she approached him by the window. "We need to talk," she said softly, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. Ethan turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Now?" "Yes, now." Harper took a deep breath. "Before this is over." He nodded, gesturing toward a quieter corner of the room where they wouldn't be disturbed. Once they were alone, Harper began, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't sign up for this job expecting to care about you or fall in love with you. But somewhere along the way I did, and hearing you call me just another asset, it broke something inside me." Ethan winced, guilt flashing across his face. "Harper, I'm so sorry. That's not how I feel. Not anymore. You've changed me in ways I never thought possible. I don't want this to end when we leave Tokyo. I want us to have a chance, to see where this could go." His words caught her off guard. For a moment, she simply stared at him, searching his eyes for any hint of insincerity. Finding none, she exhaled shakily. "Do you mean that? Or are you saying it because you think it's what I want to hear?" "I mean it," Ethan replied earnestly. "You've shown me that life isn't just about work or results. You've reminded me what it feels like to connect with someone, to truly care about someone else. I don't know what happens next, but I know I can't let you walk away without telling you how I feel." Tears welled up in Harper's eyes, but she blinked them away, unwilling to let her emotions overwhelm her. "What if this doesn't work? What if we get hurt?" "We take that risk," Ethan said firmly, "because the alternative, letting you go without trying, isn't an option." Before Harper could respond, the doors opened, and Chairman Nakamura entered the room, accompanied by his family and key executives. Everyone rose to their feet, signaling that the moment of truth had arrived. Reluctantly, Harper and Ethan returned to their seats, exchanging a fleeting glance that carried the weight of unspoken promises. Chairman Nakamura stepped up to the podium, his demeanor calm, yet commanding. After thanking everyone for their participation, he launched into his decision. To Ethan's relief and Harper's astonishment, he announced that Caldwell Tech would indeed secure the partnership. Cheers erupted throughout the room, and Ethan allowed himself a brief smile before turning his attention back to the chairman. "However," Nakamura continued, raising a hand to silence the applause, "there is something I must address. From the beginning, I suspected that Mr. Caldwell's relationship with Ms. Bennett might not be entirely genuine." Gasps rippled through the crowd as all eyes turned to Ethan and Harper. Harper's heart sank, certain that the revelation would ruin everything, but Nakamura wasn't finished. Smiling gently, he added, "Despite this, I chose to observe closely. What I saw was remarkable. Ms. Bennett's sincerity and passion shone through every interaction, while Mr. Caldwell demonstrated a willingness to adapt and grow. True character, reveals itself even in deception, and both of you have proven yourselves worthy partners, not only in business but in life. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Harper glanced at Ethan, who looked equally stunned. Slowly, a grin spread across her face, mirroring the one forming on Ethan's lips. They had been caught, but instead of judgment, they received understanding and approval. After the formalities concluded, Ethan pulled Harper aside once again. "So," he began, his tone light but his eyes serious. "What do you say? Will you stay with me this time, not as my fake fiancé, but as my real partner?" Harper hesitated, savoring the moment. Then, with a playful smirk, she extended her hand. "Let's negotiate those terms first." Ethan laughed, taking her hand in his. "Deal." As they walked out of the conference room together, hand in hand, Harper realized that sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to the greatest destinations. And Ethan knew that for the first time in his life, he had found something far more valuable than success: love. Returning to the United States after their whirlwind week in Tokyo felt like stepping into a completely different world. The bustling streets of New York, with their honking taxis and towering skyscrapers, were a stark contrast to the serene beauty of Japan's gardens and temples. For Harper and Ethan, however, the real change wasn't in their surroundings. It was in how they viewed each other and their future together. In the weeks following the summit, Harper moved into Ethan's penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. It wasn't an easy adjustment at first. Harper's free-spirited nature clashed with Ethan's meticulous routines. She loved impromptu weekend getaways and late-night movie marathons, while he preferred structured schedules and early mornings. But instead of letting these differences divide them, they became opportunities for growth. Harper taught Ethan to loosen up and embrace spontaneity, while Ethan helped Harper appreciate the value of planning ahead. Slowly but surely, they created a rhythm that worked for both of them, a delicate balance between order and chaos. One of Harper's first priorities was reconnecting Ethan with his estranged sister, Claire. They hadn't spoken in years due to a bitter disagreement over family business matters, but Harper believed that mending this relationship could bring immense joy to Ethan's life. At first, Ethan resisted the idea, convinced it was too late to repair the damage. But Harper persisted, gently reminding him that love and forgiveness are worth fighting for. With Harper's encouragement, Ethan reached out to Claire, inviting her to dinner at their apartment. The meeting was awkward at first, filled with hesitant smiles and guarded conversations. However, as the evening wore on, old memories resurfaced and laughter replaced tension. By the end of the night, Claire and Ethan had agreed to start fresh, vowing to support each other moving forward. Watching them reconcile brought tears to Harper's eyes. She knew she had played a small part in healing something precious. Meanwhile, Harper poured her energy into revitalizing her event planning business. With Ethan's financial backing and connections, she expanded her services to include corporate events, helping companies create meaningful experiences for employees and clients alike. Her work caught the attention of Caldwell Tech's marketing team, who hired her to organize their annual innovation gala. The event was a resounding success, earning rave reviews from attendees and solidifying Harper's reputation as one of the city's top planners. Inspired by Harper's passion for bringing people together, Ethan proposed an idea that would combine her creativity with his resources, a foundation dedicated to supporting aspiring entrepreneurs. Together, they launched the Caldwell Bennett Foundation, offering grants, mentorship programs, and networking opportunities to individuals from underserved communities. The initiative quickly gained traction, drawing praise from industry leaders and media outlets alike. For Harper, seeing her vision come to life alongside Ethan was incredibly fulfilling. It reminded her why she had fallen in love with him in the first place, his ability to dream big and make those dreams a reality. As months turned into a year, Harper and Ethan's bond deepened. They celebrated milestones big and small, from landing new clients for Harper's business to securing groundbreaking deals for Caldwell Tech. Through it all, they remained each other's biggest cheerleaders, celebrating successes and navigating challenges side by side. Their relationship wasn't without its ups and downs, but they approached every obstacle with open communication and unwavering support. When Ethan finally proposed, it was in a way that perfectly encapsulated their journey together. On a crisp, autumn afternoon, he took Harper to Central Park, where they had shared countless walks and quiet moments. Standing beneath a canopy of golden leaves, Ethan got down on one knee and presented her with a simple yet elegant ring. "Harper Bennett," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "You've shown me what it means to live, not just exist, but truly live. Will you marry me?" Tears streaming down her face, Harper nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Their wedding, held 6 months later, was a reflection of their unique partnership. Instead of a lavish affair, they opted for an intimate ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. The venue was a charming barn nestled in the countryside, decorated with fairy lights, wildflowers, and personal touches that told their story. As they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, including Ethan's. His promise to always cherish and support Harper echoed through the room, leaving no doubt about the depth of his love. Afterward, during the reception, Harper stood up to give a heartfelt speech. "When I first met Ethan, I thought our relationship would be temporary, a fake engagement for a business deal, but somewhere along the way it became so much more. He taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing someone every single day, flaws and all. And Ethan, I choose you for today, tomorrow, and forever." The crowd erupted in applause, and Ethan pulled Harper into a tight embrace. As they danced under the stars that night, surrounded by the people who mattered most, they knew their journey was just beginning. What started as a performance had blossomed into something genuine, a love built on trust, vulnerability, and mutual respect. Looking back, neither Harper nor Ethan could have predicted how their lives would intertwine. A business deal brought them together, but it was their willingness to take risks, embrace imperfections, and believe in second chances that kept them united. In each other they found not only a partner but also a best friend, a confidant, and a source of endless inspiration. For Harper, the girl who once dreamed of making a difference through her work, falling in love with Ethan proved that happiness didn't have to come at the expense of ambition. And for Ethan, the man who once equated success with solitude, loving Harper showed him that true fulfillment lies in connection, with others, with oneself, and with the world around us. As they embarked on this next chapter of their lives, hand in hand, Harper and Ethan knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a leap of faith and the courage to follow your heart.